our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Mom with the new fletch.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
And I'm your Kappa Beta Gamma Pool Party Invite Mike.
And it's Jill.
And we are Coltonless this episode. I'm telling you, every episode, someone's dropping like flies. Me and Mike, the only perfect attendance, I think.
What do I get?
I don't know what you get. I mean, I guess technically I have the perfect attendance because you don't do all the other stuff too, but...
Okay, but this is canon.
If I was the teacher, you would be like the teacher's pet.
Oh, thank you. That's like literally all I ever hoped for in life.
That's not creepy at all.
Yeah, as I said it was a little creepy. Just a tiny bit. So we are back for another one, and it's like, by the time you guys hear this next week, it's gonna be summer's almost done. We're about to hit fall, about to hit that spooky season. So excited. I hate being hot. I'm ready for t-shirt and short weather for me, but like sweater weather for everyone else. Hashtag fat guy problems. I know people listening may be able to understand that. So let's get into what we have been consuming. What have we been watching? What have you been listening to? What have you been reading? I don't know. What have you been doing? And Jill, you weren't with us for the cinematic masterpiece of Thesis, which, as I said that, I guess it wasn't that sarcastic because I think we all ended up really liking that. So, what have you been consuming?
All right. Well, first off, I rewatched The Lost Boys the other day.
Oh, fuck,
nice.
Yeah.
Yes, I enjoyed every minute of it, like, even more than seeing it in the past. It gives me so much nostalgia. I love that movie. And speaking of The Lost Boys, I just went to another Monster Mania Con last weekend, and they had a Lost Boys reunion there. So that was really cool.
Oh,
so they had,
God.
Keith Sutherland and a bunch of other actors. I didn't meet anybody because I'm too scared to do any of that kind of stuff. I did see Corey Taylor from afar, who is the lead singer of Slipknot. But anyway.
Nice.
Yeah.
But not Corey Haim, because he's dead. R.I.P.
Wow. Big rip. Yeah. And there was a lot of Lost Boys merch because they kind of cater to like who's going to be there.
Oh,
so
nice.
It was a lot of cool stuff there. I did pick up a really dope Queen of the Damned t-shirt, which I'm really happy about. And I had a nice little conversation with the vendors of, I think it's Studio House Designs. And they also had these like little anatomical heart stress balls that had Queen of the Damned on it. And I thought that was cute.
Did you buy one and send it to Colton?
I should have. I'm gonna have to go back. But yeah, I had a nice little conversation to them. I was like, man, I'm like the only person who likes this movie. And we hit it off talking about the soundtrack and how it's like a time capsule for that era. I got some spooky art prints there. So that's cool too. Apart from that, I saw Barbie and I really liked it.
Awesome.
Super funny. Yeah. I went to see Talk to Me with Rowan. I wasn't on that episode of Now Slaying, but I thought it was a fresh concept and well executed. I'd give it a yay. Went to see The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I think me and Rowan are going to record a Now Slaying on that soon. So if you want to hear my thoughts on that, look out for that. Rowan's gonna love this one. I watched Malignant for the first time
Oh,
ever.
yeah.
Yes! And I thought it was pretty good. I liked it. I was not prepared for the twists and turns of that movie. So yeah, I liked it, and I got shit on by Colton for liking it. But anyway, as the story of my life. I just want to say,
I came to your defense.
Thank
you. Big Malignant
with the word Floppenheimer.
Floppenheimer. I watched House at the End of the Street with Jennifer Lawrence. What a terrible fucking movie that is.
Oh my god,
I'm
it's
so sorry.
awful. It's
so
awful.
bad. But I love Jennifer Lawrence.
And Elizabeth Shue was in it. It's like such a waste.
It was a waste. Dear fuck. I also rewatched Pulp Fiction, and it was better than I remember. Lots of good one-liners. It was really funny. Fucking love that movie. I also watched The Crazies, the 2010 version.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I liked it a lot. Yeah, Rowan's a fan of that one.
That pitchfork scene, just...
Yes. I love
Great.
it. I love the absolute redneckery of that movie. I love weird rednecks in horror movies. I love Rob Zombie. But yeah, I like the premise of like the toxins infecting people, and I don't know, I thought it was really good. I love the gas station scene. That was really cool. I watched The Tooth Fairy for Stream Screams, and you can check out our thoughts on that on Patreon soon. And that's it for things I've been watching, and I've been playing a lot of Minecraft. What about you, Mike?
I love that you're playing Minecraft. That's such a like mindless like vibe. I love just like installing Minecraft again and then just making a playlist of like ambient music and just like losing my mind for like 4 days.
It's so fun.
But it's very stressful too if you do it on survival because like, you know.
Don't do that shit.
I've never played Minecraft.
He
Listen,
says
I'm
an adult.
Oh yeah. Girl, according to what definition? I'm kidding. Well, I also saw Barbie, which I
Nice.
thoroughly enjoyed. I thought it was really funny and clever. And I knew it was going to be a good night because first of all, I haven't gotten to see a movie in theaters in like literally months, like probably 4 or 5 months at least. And I walked in and like, you know, there's the big lobby with the concessions, and it was Tuesday night, which here is cheap night. So Tuesday night is always just as busy as like a Friday or Saturday night. Like it's just blocked with people, like just hundreds of people everywhere. And I'm not even kidding, like, easily 70% of the people in that lobby, and that's hundreds of people, were wearing, like, pink shirts or pink dresses or pink hats or whatever. And I was like, oh my god, all these people are going to see Barbie and they're wearing pink, and I loved it because we all were too. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, it was this, like, experience that, you know, is so rare nowadays to, like, have this, like, collective movie experience where, you know, there's so much different stuff on streaming, and, like, you know, I feel like a lot of the big blockbusters don't have as broad of an appeal as Barbie did, because it kind of like appealed to like youngsters and adults and like men and women and like just everybody. And you know, I feel like everybody was going to see it, and you know, everybody dressing in their pink or wearing like their Barbie shirts or going with, you know, a wig on or whatever. It's just like it was a nice moment. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
I agree. That's adorable.
Yeah, it was good. It was mostly adults in our showing. Like there was a handful of kids, but yeah. I mean, I guess it was probably like 8:30, so it's probably like past their bedtime or whatever. I don't know. I was going to movies at like 10 o'clock when I was that age, but whatever. So yeah, I saw Barbie, loved it. Other than that, I have not been watching a whole lot other than this trashy MTV reality dating show called Are You the One?
Oh my god, I knew you were going to say that.
Okay, but it's not like, I've never seen it before. Apparently there's like 9 seasons of it, but it's this new one called Come One, Come All, and everybody in it is like sexually fluid, like, you know, pansexual, bi, like there's a couple of like kind of gender fluid people and like trans and stuff, and like so everybody in there could be like a match for everybody else. So I just think it's really, I've been like, for like trash reality TV, I just like love it so much because I'm like, you don't see this that often. It's just like men and women hooking up and like women and women and men, and they're just like all flip-flopping back and forth, and like everybody's sexy, and it's just like a really good time. And
yeah,
it's really garbagey, but like I'm really enjoying it. It's kind of a way to clock out of my brain for
what tequila should have been. Tequila,
tequila.
What the
what
fuck her name is? I cannot.
Tila Tequila. Yeah. That's what I was. I forgot about her. Oh my god. What a fucking mess of a human being. She turned out to be a Nazi, but anyway.
Yeah. Sorry.
But yeah, so she had that potential, shall we say. And it was
she went down that far right pipeline.
Oh yeah. MySpace to far right pipeline is definitely real. It only took 20 years, but you know. She got there eventually. But yeah, and other than that, I've just been like kind of playing games and checking out of my brain as much as possible lately. So, I mean, that's really all I watch. No, that's not true. I also watched this like really interesting TV movie with my friend. We have this like thing where once every like 2 weeks or so we'll like drink and watch shitty old like 90s and 80s TV movies on Tubi. And this week we watched one and
Sorry, why aren't you on Stream Screams? You're already doing the work.
listen, I know. It's like literally well, my friend actually wants to he's like, we should do a podcast and call it Not Without My Laughter and just record us talking shit about it. And I was like, that's actually not a bad idea, but anyway. So yeah, so this week we watched one from 1989 called A Deadly Silence, and it seemed like it was going to be like a real kind of like shady thriller, but it turned out to be more of a like early true crime thing because it was based on like a murder that actually happened. It was about like these kids that murder their father because he's like abusing them. But it is home to not one, but I'm going to say 6 of the worst wigs I've seen in a movie in my entire life. And it's not just the main woman in it. She had at least 3 really awful wigs. And then her brother was like the men too. Everybody in it just had awful wigs, like curly perm wigs, like 80s rocker, like Motley Crue wigs. And they were just all horribly styled. And I'm like, there was no drag queen on the set. Clearly. So yeah, we watched that. It was really bad, but it's fun.
Can you create your own podcast called Awful Wigs?
Awful Wigs? I actually could. I love spotting bad wigs in TV movies from like 10 paces.
You know what you should do though? You should make a list on Letterboxd of all the bad wigs.
That is brilliant, Jillian. Brilliant.
Do it. I want to see it.
Yeah, okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So stay tuned. Follow me on Letterboxd, everyone. Yeah, that's really all I've been doing. You know, what about you, Ro? Let's catch up. I know you've been deep diving into stuff.
Well, I'll start with, I did a couple rewatches. Rewatched Ambulance, because I hadn't cracked open my 4K of it.
How long have you had that 4K?
Since it came out, so when it come out last year, at like the beginning of the year, it rips. It's so good. Michael Bay, man. Michael Bay just bringing movies back. It's just action goodness. So I rewatched that. I rewatched Tenet. I've actually oddly seen Tenet a couple times. I saw it in the theater because, of course, the big thing about Tenet was it was, you know, supposed to bring everyone back into the theater during the pandemic. So I remember when my theater opened and this was the movie they played. And I think like after a week or two, the theaters got shut down again. But I did make it like opening night to go see Tenet. And I really liked it when I saw it in the theater. This is one of those like weird films that I think I've seen it twice now at home because I do own it. That I think it's better at home than it is in the theater. Oh. As big as like Christopher Nolan, you know, movies are, there's just like something very like comforting of watching this home. The sound design's very interesting, especially because it was made during the pandemic. And most of this movie, people are talking while wearing like different kinds of masks.
Oh, wow.
So it's just really interesting because obviously, you know, he wouldn't have known about the pandemic when he was like making this movie. But it's just interesting how kind of this like muffled dialogue behind masks is such a part of it. But it's fun. I know a lot of people, it's kind of pretty divisive Christopher Nolan film, but I like it. It's basically just Christopher Nolan doing James Bond. Like, it's not meant to be serious. It's just like great action set pieces, and if you can get into that, you'll enjoy it. I rewatched Alien 3 with the young guy that I work with that we're going through films.
You're educating him.
Yeah. I can't remember. I feel like I finished it. I don't think he finished it. I don't know if he had to do something. I can't remember. But I did finish it, and I mean, listen, it's the Alien franchise. You can never go wrong. That's all I'll say. I never like to say much about horror movies because I'm like, well, if I review it, then I don't want you to know all my opinions. Oh, the other rewatch I did was Dangerous Minds.
Oh my god.
Which is terrible.
Wow.
It's just like, it's terrible. Especially, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. If you're a listener of us throughout history, you'll know at some point in time I watched all the Substitute movies, which are basically like Dangerous Minds, except all the students get shot because they're all bad guys. Substitute movies, way better. Like, they're way more...
Good old Tom Berenger.
They're way more forgiving because they're just shitty action movies. I didn't realize how bad Dangerous Minds was because I feel like it's like in everyone's mind is this good movie, but it is really bad. It's like worse than a Lifetime movie. Nothing happens in it. Like nothing at all. I think a kid dies off screen and everyone's sad and then the movie ends.
I mean, it was just Oscar bait, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's just not very good Oscar bait.
It was Oscar bait that ended up having a smash hit on the soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly. And, I also rewatched Inside Llewyn Davis, which I hadn't seen in a long time, a couple years, which it's great. It's a 5-star movie for me. I'd have to really look at the filmography of like the Coen brothers, but like I know I like this one more than I like Fargo, which is probably blasphemous to say, but I have said many times on this podcast, like I fucking love Oscar Isaac. And not only is Oscar Isaac amazing, he's actually a very good singer, so he was very good in this movie as he sang everything himself. And yeah, it's just like a great cast set in this like folk music world. Early Adam Driver in it, who is fantastic. Justin Timberlake is in it. He's really good in it.
Boo.
John Goodman's in it. He's fantastic. But if you're interested in like kind of, this isn't based on anything real. It's loosely based on a folk singer, but they kind of did their own thing. But it's just very interesting. It's kind of like a depressing look at the life of like a struggling musician. And that was fun to... It doesn't sound like it was fun to revisit, but it was. And then, some first-time watches. I watched George Carlin on Campus, which is one of his stand-ups from 1984. It was kind of mid, as the kids say. That middle 80s period is not great for Carlin because he hasn't really gotten into like the angry old man phase yet, and he's not as like risque as he was when he first came out. It's just like the humor is very like PG, which is weird for Carlin, and it's a lot more like body humor in his stand-up. But I mean, it's Carlin. One thing I did watch that I fucking loved was Netflix recently put out a documentary on Wham, and it is really good, like really, really well done. Obviously, with George Michael's not being alive, they use a lot of like old interviews and stuff, but it's narrated by him and I can't think of the other guy's name, Andrew something, but the other guy that was in Wham also narrates it. And this is like an official, like it was okayed by them. It's got all their music in it. I don't know anything about Wham, nor do I even really listen to Wham. And, like, when I came out of this, I was like, man, that, like...
You should.
I was, like, the first Wham album when they were teenagers, and they were doing, like, this weird, like, pop rap music. It's just incredible. I was like, it's just bops. It's all bops. So that was fantastic. Colton would be happy. I did finally go see Oppenheimer. I enjoyed it. It was pretty good. It is long. It's, like, over 3 hours long. But everyone it plays their part well. It was interesting. I don't know anything about Oppenheimer, so I can't really speak on, like, what's true, what's not. There was some cool parts. I know Colton talked about it. Like, there is like almost like little scenes that are kind of horror in it, which definitely are there. But I've never seen a film where like they'll just be like people that have won Oscars and they'll just be in the movie for like 20 seconds. Just doing like walk-bys. I've never seen so many famous people in a film. And Florence Pugh is just fucking awesome in it. So, she's good in anything. I also saw The Meg for the first time. And I'll follow that by, I saw the first one because I planned on going to see the second one. So, The Meg was a creature film. Like I said, who knows? Maybe we'll pick it sometime. But I did go see the second one the other night, which I really enjoyed. It was in 3D. And I had the theater to myself. No one was there.
Oh my God.
And it was awesome. It was the late show. It was like 10 o'clock at night. It's just one of those good times. Like, I shut my brain off. I was just laughing the whole time. I'm watching like giant sharks fight giant octopuses in 3D and Jason Statham punching them both in the face. You can't really get mad at a movie that's made to be a pointless action movie. I saw Dead Poet Society for the first time. I had never seen this movie, and it's fantastic. I mean, everyone has talked about that. It's good. Robin Williams is amazing. It was pretty powerful. I saw The French Dispatch finally. This was all right. This is probably my least favorite Wes Anderson film. I like a lot of the ideas in it. I just didn't think they were really fully realized. I kind of wish the first story in the anthology was the movie, and they just expanded that. That story had Adrian Brody and Benicio del Torres in it. It was amazing. I really loved it. And the last thing I saw was Crimson Tide. I had never seen this. This definitely isn't like my kind of movie. It's like a military movie, but I've been more Top Gun opened my mind a little more to these.
Is that the one with Sean Connery?
No, that you're thinking of Hunt for Red October.
Yes, yeah. Okay,
so,
I knew it was Red or something in the title.
Crimson Tide is Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington, as well as
gotcha, yeah,
as well as James Gandolfini and a young Viggo Mortensen, and it's a banger. If you're in the Tony Scott movies, I mean, Man on Fire with Denzel Washington is like up there for like one of my favorite movies. I get down with Tony Scott all the time.
My friends used to call that Explosion the movie.
Oh my God. I love Denzel, and this is pretty interesting because it's not really an action movie. It's like a courtroom drama on a sub. It's like very claustrophobic. Denzel, as always, just batting 1,000 all the time. Totally outacts Gene Hackman, in my opinion. But I was very interested to see it. I'd never seen it, and I found out that Tarantino actually did the screenplay. Kind of, this would have been around like Pulp Fiction time and stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much. Other than that, I'm just rewatching the X-Files. Still on season 1. Yeah, it's good. I've never watched it fully all the way through, and so I decided to do that, and it's pretty. I mean, it's the X-Files. It's not bad. It's good.
True.
So we're going to get into our film, finally. And this was my pick, so I guess I have to talk about why I chose this film. So the film is 1997's I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I thought it was kind of fitting. This was, this was still the summer when I picked it, and when we review it, it's still the summer. So why not a summer horror movie? I remember seeing this. I've seen this tons of times, but I never remember it. Like, I never really remember anything from it. But I know it's like everyone loves this movie, and I know it's like this classic. So I was like, you know what? It's time we review it. We've done Scream. So this is kind of like the other big slasher movie that came around that time. So that's why I picked it. So let's kick it into the trailer, and we'll get into the synopsis and the first experiences.
The creator of Scream has done it again.
I think he's dead.
It was an accident.
And the critics are hooked. I Know What You Did Last Summer is an edge-of-your-seat thriller.
Oh my God, this isn't happening.
It's scarier than Scream. And will make you jump out of your seat.
Help him, he's gonna kill us!
Hang on for a wild terror ride.
What are you waiting for?
I Know What You Did Last Summer. Don't see it alone. Rated R.
1997's I Know What You Did Last Summer, directed by Jim Gillespie and written by Kevin Williamson, original writing credit by Louise Duncan, and the synopsis is as follows. If you're going to bury the truth, make sure it stays buried. As they celebrate their high school graduation, 4 friends are involved in a hit-and-run accident when their car hits and apparently kills a pedestrian on an isolated roadway. They dispose of the body and vow to keep the incident a secret. A year later, somebody starts sending them letters bearing the warning, I know what you did last summer. So, first experiences. Is this our first time seeing this? Or did we grow up Jennifer Love Hewitt stans and Sarah Michelle Gellar stans and just anybody in this movie, really? Mike, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, definitely an S.M.G. stan, obviously. Like, Buffy from the beginning, totally, like, infected my life. I mean, yeah, we liked Jennifer Love Hewitt, but she was just... Party of 5 just did not hit the same as Buffy. Let's face it. Like, Buffy was where it was at when you were, like, an angsty, horror-loving child. So I saw this in theaters, embarrassingly. I had to make my dad bring me and my friends to it, because obviously we couldn't get into it. Because we also made him take us to go see Scream, so at this point he was just like, literally, kill me. Like, so I never have to take all of these people to another horror movie again. But yeah, so I saw it in theaters, and, you know, because that was like the big horror boom time when it was like kind of back in vogue and they were all in theaters. Yeah, and I've seen it like a bunch of times since then, because, you know, it's one of those that's, for that era, kind of a classic, because it was, you know, a big hit. What about you, Jill?
Yeah, I also saw it when I was a kid. I don't remember like where, but I remember seeing it, and like you said, it's like I watched it, but I don't remember a lot about it. So
Yeah.
It was interesting to go back and watch it. But also, like you, I'm a Sarah Michelle Gellar enthusiast, I guess. I also love Buffy so much, and I love everything she's in. So yeah, I also like Jennifer Love Hewitt, and I did watch Party of 5, but obviously Buffy is way better. The funny thing is, I think they used to come on like back to back on, I don't know what network it was.
I think it was like, Fox or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like before then or after then, it was Seventh Heaven. It was such a weird.
Oh my God.
Mix. But yeah, so not my first time, but it's been a while, and I didn't remember a lot of it. Yeah, what about you, Rowan?
Yeah, I kind of disclosed that I had experiences with it. Like you, Jill, I don't really remember my first time seeing this. I was kind of aware of everybody. I wasn't a Buffy guy, so I shouldn't say that. I watched it when it was on TV, like if I'm flipping the channels, but I didn't seek it out. It used to be on YTV also.
Oh, yes, it did. You're right, yeah.
But I was kind of aware of, like, everybody in it. I was a huge Jennifer Love Hewitt fan from Can't Hardly Wait, which is, like, one of my all-time favorite movies.
Literally one of my faves, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've told the story that notoriously when I was a kid, I rented Can't Hardly Wait, and I watched it 10 times in a row. That's how much I used to just it was a VHS, so you had to rewind it. But I just would watch it and watch it. I know that, like, whole movie, word for word. And then, like, Ryan Phillippe, I knew Sarah Michelle Gellar more from Cruel Intentions than I would of Buffy. But, you know, I saw this at some point, I'm sure. Not in the theater. I was only like 9 or 10, so I wouldn't.
Listen, I know that you knew Sarah Michelle Gellar from her spit-encrusted kiss in Cruel Intentions.
Yeah.
I just know it. I know you were obsessed with that. I know you wore out the VHS on that part.
So did I.
Everyone did. That was everyone's bisexual awakening, was that scene, honestly.
No comment.
Everyone saw that and said, kissing someone of the same sex is fucking hot. Let's do it.
So let's get into the fish hook and the fish guts of it all. We'll start with our favorite scene and or favorite kill. Jill, why don't you kick it off?
All right, my favorite scene is the crab scene.
Nice.
Because I don't know, I remember that part when I was a kid because I was like really freaked out by it. She's driving the car and she hears something like flittering about in the trunk. She stops, opens it up, and there's the corpse of that guy, Max, who also, I think it's really funny. I just realized that he's Leonard in The Big Bang Theory. When I was watching it, I was like...
Yes, and also from Roseanne.
Yes! And I was like, wow,
Johnny Galecki,
cool.
Everyone's love. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, him, dead, bunch of live crabs. That would scare the fuck out of me because I am so scared of like things from the ocean. So yeah.
And crabs are like sharp and freaky.
Yeah. And they're they're alive, man. So yeah. And I also love after that when she's just like yelling out to like no one and she's like, whatever she says, her little monologue.
What are you waiting for?
Funny.
What are you waiting
for? And then she's like, there's crabs. I think it's kind of funny and also terrifying. But
That scene
that's my
is
favorite
great.
scene. Yeah.
I read like a funny thing on the IMDb about John Galecki, like talking about in an interview he did that Jennifer Love Hewitt, they made him call her because she thought that the body cast of him was like so realistic that she didn't believe he was alive. So, like, he said he had to call her and be like, yeah, I'm alive.
Oh my god. That's wholesome.
That
I
is
love
wholesome.
Jennifer Love Hewitt. And
Yeah.
can we also just talk about her cleavage? But anyway.
No, but, like, truly, though, it's weird for, like...
It's like wholesome cleavage, though.
It
It's
is
like,
wholesome.
Yeah.
I know. It's like when you talk about her rack, it doesn't seem, like, wrong. Even though it is still objectifying her, you know?
Yeah. I love her as a person. And I love
because she's
her
just
titties.
because you do talk about her. Like I find when you talk about Jennifer Love Hewitt, everybody loves her and they love her personality and they love her work and they think she's like a charming actress, but also that she has like a nice body. You know what I mean?
Well balanced, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But anyway, what about you, Rowan? What's your favorite scene/kill?
mine, yet again, not a kill. I'm really letting people down here, but my scene does involve the dead because I love the scene on the boat towards the end where we have Julie like climbing into the ice section of the boat, and then we get the reveal of all the bodies being kept on the boat. I love that. It really gave me like giallo Italian horror vibes, just like the reveal of dead bodies. I'm like, this is exactly how like just some awesome 70s giallo would like reveal the bodies.
Or like a Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Any kind of like slasher thing. I just love that. It's kind of the only real, it's weird to say in a slasher movie, it's like one of the few like morbid scenes in this. I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but like this is a pretty notoriously like bloodless movie. So for a teen slasher. But what about you, Mike?
I think you all know what I'm gonna say. What I always say, and my favorite scene and kill is the chase scene starring Miss S.M.G, Sarah Michelle Gellar. I literally, but for years, because again, like you guys, I sort of hadn't watched it for years, and I just like sort of completely forgot everything about the movie. But the one part that I was like burned into my memory was that, because I feel like at that point, and maybe even since then, there's been a real lack of good chase scenes in horror movies, especially slashers. Like Scream, all the Scream movies always had at least one really good chase scene. And this one, thank you, Kevin Williamson, writer of Scream 1 and 2 and like many other horror movies. He did write a good chase scene. It was extremely well directed. I think that there was a lot of weaknesses in this movie, but one of the absolute strengths was that fucking scene because it was so tense and it went on for so long. And the kills of, Sarah Michelle Gellar and her sister, Elsa. Let it go, please, Elsa. Let your hatred go. Let it go. I just thought, and they were like really, the Elsa kill, the shot of, it wasn't even her when she was actually getting killed, but, it was that moment later when it shows him like carrying her body still on the hook. That to me is the most disturbing, violent thing that happens in that movie, right? Because that hook, you don't see, like, you get a little blood splatter every now and then, but that's it. But like that hook still being inside her and him just like dragging her body is like, ugh. I never forgot that moment. So that was like absolutely my favorite kill and my favorite scene. And like S.M.G, knows how to, like, she's a scream queen through and through. And I just think that was her moment. That whole movie was like centered around her chase scene. And you can tell because it's like, to me, the like chef's kiss sweet spot of that whole movie. So yeah, that's
actually my second pick. I was gonna say that. Yeah, in the store. I love it. Yeah.
When Elsa dies, I saw that the blood was actually like post-production.
Oh, was it?
Because it was bloodless. It was a bloodless kill. Pretty much like anything with blood was added after they had finished the film. Because they did do like a lot of reshoots and stuff.
Yeah.
Just because I think this came back like a little tamer than they wanted it to be. I don't know much about Jim Gillespie. I mean, I don't think he's really, like, I'm looking at his filmography, he hasn't really done anything other than this of, like, note. But I do know that he kind of, like, talked about that he was pretty anti, like, this being, like, blood-filled and violent and all that. Like, he wanted it to be more like a murder mystery, more so than, like, a teen slasher movie.
Well, it's funny because I also read the book that it was based on, because I absolutely, like, when I was a kid,
by Lois Duncan, not Louise Duncan.
I loved Lois Duncan. You were on such a roll of like mispronunciations and wrong names that I couldn't even. I was like, I can't stop them. It's like a steamroller. I'm just gonna get flattened. I read a lot of Lois Duncan books because they were always at like the used bookstores around our city. And for like that age group, when you're a kid, like there's really not much when you love horror other than actually reading Stephen King, which I was also doing. There wasn't a lot of choices for like more age appropriate horror. So Lois Duncan was like really big, for like 20 years. So there was always like copies of her books kicking around. And I found a copy of this for like $1. And it was not a slasher movie. It was very much like a thriller, a mystery. It was just more like a whodunit sort of thing. I can't remember. I think maybe 1 or 2 people died or disappeared or whatever. But like
0.
Yeah. And I remembered like going into the movie and like, I remember seeing the trailer for the movie and I had already read the book and I was like, this seems like a completely different movie with the same title. So I can totally get where he's coming from, because if he signed on for like an adaptation of Lois Duncan, which is a very, very tame, suitable for like, a tween to read book, and then it turned into this.
From what I researched, I've never read the book, but from what I've researched, the book, no one dies in the book. They're just kind of stalked and like scared, but that's it.
I think the person dies at the beginning, and that's
it's like someone dies, and then it's like, but like none of the main cast die. Because I did read that like the names are all the same. They kept the names from the book.
Yeah,
but I was gonna say it is probably valuable to note that Lois Duncan did not like this adaptation. Yeah. She was on record saying that she didn't like it. She doesn't. From what I read, like, she didn't like horror. Like, she doesn't consider herself a horror writer. She considered herself a thriller and a mystery writer. But yeah, just didn't like violence overly. Didn't like what they did. So I thought it was kind of interesting that you have, from what I've read, it's like her and this director kind of being like, we're not really into this genre. But then you have this script by Kevin Williamson, who like is like the king of horror in in this period of the 90s.
But it's so funny because he was very clearly a Lois Duncan stan. And it's funny because Wes Craven in the 70s directed an adaptation of another one of her books starring Linda Blair, Summer of Fear, which was also a very good book, by the way. More of a supernaturally, but it was still kind of a tame thriller, like something you'd see on TV. But also his next movie after this, I think, was a riff on another one of her books, but it wasn't an adaptation, maybe because she didn't like this one.
Yeah.
And it was the name was almost the same and the plot was very similar. And I just think it's so funny that he very clearly loved her work, but didn't, but turned it into a slasher movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like, to me, it was just so funny that like you worked with Wes Craven, who did such a good adaptation of one of her books. You very clearly loved her books, but then you wrote an adaptation of one of them that everybody involved with it hated. It's just like, fuck.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, well, and I think apologies in advance, I guess, because I feel like there's going to be lots of mention of Scream in this, just because this is kind of like, when I think of 90s slashers, like, I mean, these are what, like a year apart from each other?
Yeah, this only exists because of Scream.
Yeah, because of Scream.
Yeah.
So, like, I think it's interesting for the listeners just to get an idea, like, so Kevin Williamson wrote this before he wrote Scream, and this was turned down by, like, everybody. No one wanted to pick this script up. And then once Scream came and made a dump truck load of money, it was like, hey, we need a script from you. Like, yeah, that script, let's buy it. Let's immediately start making it. Which is kind of my biggest complaint about this, is like, with Scream, just like that perfect unison of Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson, and like you can tell all the love that goes into it and just like the careful craft of it, where this really does just feel like, I don't know, like the Hunger Games, or like it's just like, it feels like a big studio box office film that a studio put together, and they were like,
they're trying to tick all the boxes.
Yeah, like, we want to ride off a Scream, like, how do we make our own thing? Which, obviously, this whole era, like, you get Final Destination, there's, like, a real shitty one called Soul Survivors that came out.
Listen, it wasn't that bad, but anyway.
There's a whole bunch of them, and I mean, even the cover, very reminiscent of Scream.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all these covers were the same, with, like, the cast of teens on the front, with, like, that element of horror.
Yeah, in the background, yeah.
Yeah, I just, like, sadly, for lots of charm, I'm sure we'll talk about it, I always felt hesitant with any of it, because I'm like, even the charming parts of this, I just know in my brain are, like, really inauthentic, because most of the crew behind this, like, doesn't even appreciate horror like they should. So, it's just kind of like a money grab is what it feels to me.
I mean, it is. Like, any way you slice it, so to speak, it's very clearly just a cash-in, which is unfortunate.
Anytime you, like, talk about this movie, you hear about this movie, there's always that, people are always comparing it to Scream, because they were so close together in time and, like, genre, and that's what I always compare it to as well. I'm like, do I really like this movie as much as I like Scream? Not really, but it's, it's good for what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, they're even like, oh my god, quick, Kevin, like, what other scripts do you have? Like, let's bang this out, like, right now. It's like, oh yeah, just take a weekend and just polish it up a little bit, and then we'll start shooting next week.
Yeah, and it just, like, it sucks, because, I guess maybe nostalgia now makes it better, like, because like we said, the cast of, like, Freddie Prinze Jr. and Ryan Phillippe and Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Stacked.
Like, it's so stacked. But then I guess, like, if you were in the 90s, like, this would feel like just a studio movie, because these guys were all at the height of their fames during this time. But I mean, if anything, I guess, you have to credit it for bringing real life love into it.
Oh, yeah.
The first time Freddie Prinze Jr. met Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Except he was not her lover in the movie.
No.
Which I think is really funny.
I thought it was funny. I read a fact about this movie that Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. only talk to each other twice in this entire movie. They have no dialogue together.
Oh my god, that's true.
And then Ryan Phillippe goes on to marry Reese Witherspoon and they're in Cruel Intentions together.
Who Sarah Michelle Gellar is also
stars
with. Yeah.
So all comes together.
I have a question for you guys. What's your feeling on rock versions of Seals and Crofts? songs.
I literally, my first note is this fucking rock soundtrack. Yes.
I love the soundtrack.
It is so good.
Typo negative.
And like the fucking like Hush cover and stuff, like Jesus Christ. There's just so much going on here. I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, it's really a interesting soundtrack. Like Mighty Mighty Boss Stones is in this, and it's very 90s. Lead Belly, which isn't a 90s group, but should harken back that nostalgia, because, you know, that was where the music for me peaked. I love Where Did You Sleep Last Night by Lead Belly, which I think probably most people know it from the MTV Unplugged album for Nirvana.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's just like a fantastic song. It's a shame they couldn't get, because the Nirvana version's also very good. So it's a shame. I mean, sadly, at this time, I don't think Nirvana was really giving up any music for mainstream movies.
No, definitely not for a quick cash grab slasher movie, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Kurt Cobain was dead.
Yeah. There was, I was relying on Mike there was a song in this, and I should have Shazammed it or something. I couldn't figure out who it was, but it like...
Are you talking about when they're in the department store?
I don't know. It had a real like Portishead vibe.
I know. That's the one. Yes, I knew you were going to say that, and I know what one it is. It's when Elsa is in the store, and Sarah Michelle Gellar comes up and is being chased, and she gets let in, and it's trip hop. It's called Tuwiki by Hooverphonic.
Damn.
Excellent album.
Look at this guy.
Listen, I used to have that burned off on a CD back in the day.
I'm so impressed right now.
I'm super impressed.
Jeez.
It's from the album A New Stereophonic Sound Spectacular. Go stream it. It's excellent.
Wow.
As people that have lived, or people that live on a island that is well known for its fishing communities, I'm curious, like, does this vibe with you guys at all? Because it is like this fishing community, and you know, the whole theme, our slasher is a fisherman with a hook. I was wondering, like, did that work for you guys? Because one thing I did really enjoy was the setting of this, just because it's kind of so original. I can't really think of many other films that would have something like this as a setting.
Yeah, for me, it hit really close to home, you know, small fishing village or town. And it's really funny because that campfire scene where they're telling, like, you know, like little folklore stories, like the hook, you know, everyone knows that story. Everyone tells that scary story. And I have like a memory of me and my friends like underage drinking at our campfires, like or bonfires by the ocean. And I remember one time my friend was like making up the story about how this happened in Labrador. Someone escaped from an asylum in Labrador, if that even exists. And the hook story. So it was like really funny to me because I've actually had that experience. But yeah, I also love the creativity with the hook, the fishermen, the boat, like you said, the bodies in the ice. And I love the opening scene. It was, I don't know, it's very like homey and comfortable to me. But yeah, I really liked the setting. I thought it was cool. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I definitely vibed with it. It reminded me of all of my like vacations every summer, because it was like some of the towns, like small towns that like my parents were from and stuff, and that we'd always go revisit. In particular, like the beach and like and honestly the department store like just had, to me, it was like really accurate of like this thinks it's really fancy and everybody shops there, but like it's really tacky and cheap and quaint and not good. Like I don't think I ever noticed it before, but like now that I've got years on like, you know, on my memory, and it's not as like rose colored anymore, I'm like, that really reminds me of like an old department store in one of these like small towns that has a little bit of everything. Yeah, and it really, like, to me, I was just like, I don't know what it was, but like a store is to me always the like, how they do a store in a movie is like a measure of its connection to reality, and I think they did that so perfectly.
Thinking about riffs over there?
How dare you? Jill, you fucking knew exactly. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it.
33
yes.
and a third off.
Yes, so there was a chain of stores here that would have been a Shivers called Riffs, and they were in all of the like little small towns on the island, and it like in my memory walking in there it felt exactly like watching them walk into that store in that movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, to me it was such a fucking vibe, and I was just like, ugh. It like just drips with reality.
You're cracking me up right now.
The place in our town was called Zabians.
Ooh, that sounds fancy.
It was like the family's last name. I think it was like they were a Lebanese family, but they owned like all these stores. But basically, like in the downtown of our small town, they had like, it was Zabians. It was like only old people ever bought stuff from there, but it's supposed to be like, you know, like high end, like adult clothing, and like that's where you'd go if you were, you know, you wanted to spend a couple $1,000s on like a real leather jacket or whatever. But then they also had a store in the mall. I remember they opened up that was also like really expensive, and you're like, oh yeah, that's where like you gotta have money to shop there, but all they actually sold were like Echo and stuff, Echo and Fubu, but like when those were big and expensive brands.
Yeah.
So that's what it always reminds me of. I was gonna say, when you're talking about the kind of the opening scene and everything, I thought it was kind of funny with Max, like when Julie has the run-in with Max. Awkward conversation. Because obviously they're like kind of friendly with each other. He obviously has a thing for her because he's like trying to pick her up, and he wants to go have sex. But he like basically like frames it really weird, where he's like, oh, like, well, you're going away and like I'm going away, like, so he's basically just like, it's only proper that as friends we have this farewell sex.
Yeah, we're never gonna see each other again probably because this is the 90s, and
it's like we're friends, right? So like, of course you're supposed to bang me. I don't know, like maybe I didn't know like real dirtbags or something, but I was like, this just seems like a weird way to frame getting sex.
I've been there. There are real dirtbags.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say I've been there. I was Max.
Oh my god.
No.
Can we give her like a little bit of credit, please?
just a shred. God damn.
Just a shred.
Tiny bit.
And it's kind of like, I thought it was interesting. Like, it was good to set up because obviously, like I said, I can never remember what happens in this film. So you can tell through the progression of my notes that I thought for sure one of these kids was the villain. And I'm like, oh yeah, this makes sense. And so I think they do a good job of like setting up those red herrings of like, oh yeah, like Max is a dirtbag and he really wants Julie and he's angry he doesn't have her, so it must be him. And then, they kill him and then you're like, oh shit. And then I thought it was very interesting that they were very careful with the score, that the ominous score always kind of came in whenever there was a scene with Ray. And I'm like, okay, like Ray's the Skeet Ulrich of this film.
Yes, yeah.
And then, of course, it totally flips. Like, at the end, I was shocked. All of my notes were like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't give away this early in the movie who the fisherman is. And I thought for sure it was that, and then it wasn't.
But I mean,
the funny thing is, like, when you're watching it and you kind of, even though it was written before Scream, like, when you watch it and you look at, because I think one of the reasons why Scream is so brilliant and works so well is because if you don't really know anything about it and you're watching it and you haven't seen like 800 or 900 slasher movies, you kind of like the red herrings are really subtle and really well done, and I found that the mystery of that film was superb. But in this, I just thought it was like taking the way that Scream did red herrings, but just like with literally no subtlety.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, here you go. Here's a platter. Here's the red herring served up to you steaming on it. Like,
Well, and I mean, the way Scream, like you said, the way Scream sets up, it's subtlety, but also like there is that payoff for the watcher because the villain is someone that we've spent a bunch of time with, or villains that we've spent a bunch of time with, that we've been hinted at before and then pulling away from, where this hints at so many people. Like, we have a lot of scenes with Ray where we're like, oh shit, Ray is gonna get caught up in this web of lies. But then we have the scene where they go out to like Melissa's house, and then they're like, oh, like it's Melissa, you know, she's like jumping out at the car window and scaring them, and they make sure to like, she gives dirty looks.
Also, can we just have one moment to say R.I.P. Anne Heche, and she was brilliant?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, just have to throw that out there.
I forgot
she was really good in this.
She was good, and kind of played that, like, you know, creepy out of town fan, like lives outside the limits of the town.
Yeah, it could have been, if it had been like a shitty actor, it could have been like a real borderline offensive, like, caricature of a character, but it was well done. I thought she was really sweet in it.
And like I said, I mean, the end of my rant was just that, yeah, it just kind of felt unearned at the end when we're like, oh, okay, this is the fisherman, this is who he is, and it's like literally a guy that like we haven't seen once. Like, nothing. And it just seemed like a real cheap way to do that. Because to me, I don't think it would have took away from the film if we knew who it was, or we at least knew more, you know, of his face. And we were like, oh yeah, we've seen this guy around or whatever. Yeah, unfortunately, I was not a fan of that.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. It does feel, like you said, I think unearned is a good way to put it, because it kind of does feel a little bit cheap in a way, because you are not given enough of the information kind of ahead of time, you know what I mean? Like, I know they're trying to parcel it out, but like also it's just like, oh, these characters that are nowhere to be found in the rest of the movie are like coming in, and like, oh, they're the explanation for this. And yeah, it's just so cheap to me. It's like just introducing this random thing that is, you know, it's like you can't possibly figure it out on your own. And everything it's just red herrings and misdirection and
and to like go back to Scream, you know, it's so different because in Scream it's, you know, someone who was there the whole time. Yeah,
literally, like it's, and that's why it's so scary. It's like it's because it's that person that's, you know, sitting next to you in the classroom, right? Yeah.
I do want to put it out there that Julie, I don't know, I just feel like she seems like a bad friend to hang out with, like not fun at all. She's like just always Debbie Downing everything.
Even before she got depressed.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like even beforehand, just like ruining everyone's fun. Just not a good time, really.
It also, it made me kind of sad when she talks about how, you know, we used to be a lot of things or whatever, and, you know, it reminds me of in like high school when you're like best friends with people and they're your whole world, and then like things can quickly change and you like never talk to those people ever again. I don't know, man, it hit me in the feels, and it just
you tearing up watching this?
Yeah, I'm just sad. I mean, you know, drifting from friends. And on the other side of that though, something that's like very central to, you know, these types of teen movies is that like sense of joy. You have, you know, so much hope for your future. You're like, I'm in my last year of high school, then I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna do all these amazing things, and man, that's a feeling you never get back. You become so jaded after that. So you know, evoked a lot of feelings.
Julie though probably could have saved your life. Do we agree? If maybe she didn't give it up at the beginning there to Ray. I mean, these are always morality tales. So, and Jim Gillespie, the director, said he was interested in the morality tale of this film, which watching this, especially with that kind of lens, you know, I was like, man, could they beat this over the head even more of like all these people drifting apart and having changed through like this traumatic experience, but like there's also like, I mean, these guys were just boning the whole beginning of the film. So it's like, these always just have like such terrible sex analogies. Because, I mean, they kind of, even though they don't outright say it, I mean, it's pretty much assumed, right? That Julie was a virgin in the beginning. Because, like, when she's like, I'm ready, and then Ray's like, oh.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
He got that, like, all excited face going, trying to play it cool. Which, like, I don't know. The sand is going to get places, like...
I thought that was an awful place to fuck for the first time, to be honest.
They didn't have a blanket or anything with them, like nothing to lay down.
And like honestly, they were wearing nice clothes, and I was just like, that is gonna get so filthy.
Were they wearing nice clothes though?
I don't know. Everybody was dressed nice in this movie. I will say for
Julie's style doesn't change throughout this entire thing, which, you know, I was laughing because earlier Jill's talking about like the cleavage and stuff, and I was like, how scandalous is the cleavage when you wear long Mennonite dresses with full, like, big-ass white socks and, like, big tennis shoes?
Okay, hold on. First of all, didn't Jennifer Love Hewitt used to also be known as Jennifer Love Huge Tits? She has a tiny frame, okay? And she has big boobs. And even though she's wearing, like, you know, this pre-Y2K, like, cardigan vest, there's a lot of cleavage for her tiny frame. That is all I'm saying.
Okay, I mean,
I
listen.
think maybe that's why. I was trying to think, why isn't she known more for like the body, but like it's more that she's not like buxom like a Christina Hendricks from Mad Men or something, right? Like someone who's very hourglassy. Yeah, so maybe that's a good thing, because I feel like later in her career people forgot that she was known for having a nice rack.
I mean, she's automatically who I think of when they talk about, like, typecasted movies of, like, stereotypical, like, girl next door.
Can't Hardly Wait.
Can't Hardly Wait. This, like, her very early roles are kind of all the same personality, like, very sweet, nice to everybody, like, almost to a fault. Yeah, just kind of like this, like, all-American girl type, like, feel to her.
Mm-hmm.
A cousin of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Yeah.
With long hair and not manic or a pixie.
And then Sarah Michelle
Maybe
Gellar.
just a dream girl, I don't know.
I love Sarah Michelle Gellar just going the total opposite, especially like after all the trauma and the next year later, where like now all she does is wear like high heels and smoke and like maxi dresses going on. And
honestly, she was serving though. Like she served so much in this movie.
I think she was the best thing about this film.
Absolutely.
Even when they chopped up her hair, I was like, God damn, she looks even better.
Yeah, it's not even bad. Yeah.
Like she looks good. That was a good cut,
and then,
man.
also, why was the cop being like, is that why your hair got chopped off or like whatever? I was like, what do you mean?
Oh
why
my
are
God.
you keeping track of her
Seriously.
hair?
And like her sassing him back and like,
oh yeah, Mayberry.
I was like, you are queen.
That was a great line.
Queen.
I just don't know how intimidated I am at the fisherman if like he's like, oh, I'm gonna really fucking get her now, and he's like, I'm just gonna cut her hair. I was like, I don't know if this guy's dangerous or not, but just real creeper. That's a real that's a real I'll show you.
I will say this, if it had been 8 or 9 years later and there had been more like the beginning of social media and stuff, or 10 years later, and then an atrocious, catastrophic haircut would have been more of a like, oh my God, this is a horror movie. You know, because then it's like, oh God, everyone's gonna see it. Back then, it's like you could hide away and like nobody would know for like a month until you get it evened out and grows out.
Right.
I don't know if we have with Jill on the podcast, but I know me and Mike and Exilia many times have had conversations about in any of these movies when they got to go to the library. They gotta go, you know, get whatever that machine is that you look at the newspaper, like
the
articles.
microfiche.
Yeah, the microfiche. I really thought this did a good job, like incorporating technology of computers and early internet.
Oh, that laptop?
Way better than
like,
it could have. Like, this is pretty early, and you wouldn't think a movie would necessarily pull that off very good.
Yeah.
But, like, I thought it was awesome, because it would have been so easy for them to be like, oh, we gotta go to the town library and, like, look up where, like, it's like, no, you know what? Like, we're in 1997. Let's dial in the AOL, and let's click on some websites and get some information here.
It's a much better job than Twilight, where she Googles vampires, finds a book, drives to another town to get the book, reads the book to find a word, and then Googles that to find her information. So she could have just Googled it the whole time. But anyway.
I'm looking through my notes here. I did have an issue when our fisherman gets a hold of Barry's car and is like chasing him with the car. I don't know about you guys, but I'm just like, there's literally 8 million places you could run that this car could not get to. And he's just like running straight.
Running in a straight line is always a bad idea.
Yeah, running in a straight straight line and then running into like a building with nothing in front of it so he can just ram the car through it.
Yeah.
When I'm like, you could literally just turn and like go in an alleyway or like go into the town, into a store or something. And just, yeah, frustrating nonsense mistakes made by Barry, which I don't think I until this watch, like I said, I never remember this film, but Barry giving heavy abuser vibes going on there.
Yeah, he's creepy. I don't like him.
Yeah, he's definitely working on some issues.
Yeah, we're like, I'm assuming there was some sort of like partner violence going on there. Just from the vibes.
Yeah.
And the mom just totally, another great mom in horror franchise history, just on the phone, checked out her son's just fucking screaming and cursing and threatening women.
The door is open too.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're seeing in the window. Like, literally the door is wide open. She's like 10 feet away.
Just completely clueless.
Yeah.
One more thing. Ray. The hottest fisherman I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe they shouldn't have had Freddie Prinze Jr. Be a fisherman, because he don't look the type.
Maybe I missed it or so. Did he also play... No, he didn't play football. It was Barry that was the football guy.
Yeah.
Because that's what at first I kind of thought. I was like, maybe he was like some sort of jock or something. And then, he just couldn't get in the university or, failed out in a semester and now is a fisherman.
Wow.
I don't know.
Tell us how you feel.
So I'm going to tell you how I feel. This is the real big conversation I was waiting for. Is, we have said many times, like, I don't really remember this movie and all that stuff. So how many of you had the issues where there were scenes in this that were not in this movie because I was either thinking of A, not another teen movie, or B, scary movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was like, what's going on? I was like, doesn't this happen in this movie? And I was like, oh, wait a second. Like, no, that was played for comedy and scary
And there's a
movie.
Simpsons parody of it at some point in one of the Treehouse of Horrors. Like,
no, dog, that was Anna Faris. Wrong movie.
And it seems like it's
a
common thing because I looked it up. I was like looking at Letterboxd reviews, and almost every other Letterboxd review is like, wait a second, where are all these scenes that I remember? And then it's like, oh, scary movie. And I was like, yes,
so
we are a community. But I think like it's just really funny how scary movie has just like influenced our like thinking of, especially this film, which obviously I deemed forgettable. 8 million times I've seen it, so
a big hit at the time, but like doesn't really have that like staying power. But you're right though, and it's so funny because like we need this generation's scary movie to like spoof. There's no spoofs of like horror movies anymore. Like, come on, we need a Malignant spoof. We need like a witch spoof and all that shit. Like a Hereditary. Come on, spoof Hereditary, please.
The spooky movie people need to come and do like an A24 spoof of all the just grief horror films.
Yeah.
Just ripe for the picking. Pretty much the last thing I had on my note, I kind of want to talk about the ending for a second, which I thought was pretty good. I thought the jump scare was pretty good.
It got me.
I didn't remember there was a jump scare. So I was just like, well, this is kind of a fucking shitty way to end a movie. Like, I was like, all right, like someone wrote, I know, I still know or whatever on your thing. I thought it just ended there. And then, yeah, it got me too, Jill. I was like, oh
my God.
Shit.
I was like, Jesus.
Mike, just hardened horror viewer over here.
Oh, listen, I was like just sitting there with my arms crossed. I was like, I remember him jumping through a window in the trailer. So.
Well, and I read what was kind of interesting, because I did remember, I was like, well, didn't something else happen? And then when I looked it up, what actually happened was there was another ending written where she's like in a chat room or something, and like someone writes like, I still know what you did, and then he jumps out at her. And I wasn't wrong to think that I'd seen it, because they actually filmed it, cut it, They didn't use it, but they actually used it as the teaser promo for I Still Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, oh, that's where I would have seen it. Did you guys have any other notes on this one? Or are you comfortable going the rating it, or?
Yeah, I think I'm good, yeah.
Well, if you are new to the program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, and slay. Mike, we'll start with you. What would you give I Know What You Did Last Summer from 1997?
Well, I know what I am rating it tonight this summer, and it is going to be an okay. You know, when I saw it when I was younger, I was like, oh, this is fun. But even then, I was kind of like, it pales in comparison to some of the other offerings at the time. So, especially Kevin Williamson, when it's like, oh, the person who made Scream made this, it's like, that really, like, sets the bar too high. And again, knowing that the book is, like, more of a slow burn murder mystery, and I remember, I don't really remember much about the book, but I remember it being more satisfying than the out of nowhere shit that this one pulled. It's got some great elements to it, like the soundtrack is great, the acting is really good, there's some really nice shots, it's lit really, really well. The nighttime shots are so well lit.
They look fantastic.
Beautiful. Yeah, and and during this, there are, like, scattered throughout the movie some really memorable shots, and I think if you told me that some other person stepped in for a couple days and directed that chase scene, I would believe it, because it's so, like it's stunning. It looks really good.
This is one of the better 4Ks I've watched. I've got this on 4K.
Nice, yeah, I believe it. I feel like it's the lighting.
Really
like the lighting in this is so good. It almost saves it because it, like, looks spectacular. And again, it has to do with the setting as well. The setting is absolutely gorgeous. You know, just the cliffs and all the water and the blue skies. But it's somehow too long and too short, because I feel like we don't learn anything about anybody, but I also feel like it goes on for about 10 minutes too long. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, there's not enough exposition, and there's too much other random shit that doesn't matter happening. Yeah, I just didn't find the, like, mystery element of it to be satisfying, and it wasn't, frankly, it just wasn't bloody enough for me. But it's a fun watch. It's something that I'll rewatch every, once in a blue moon. And if somebody says they haven't seen it, I'm like, yeah, let's watch it. You know, it's like, it's fine, but it's not really that good. So yeah, what about you, Ro?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give it an okay also. Like I said, I've seen this a bunch of times and I never remember it, so that's probably not a good sign.
Yeah.
It's also weird because even though I don't remember anything from it, I seem to always, like, have it in my, like, heart that I like this movie. And when you're talking to people about 90s horror, this is, like, one of the first ones that comes up. But yeah, on this watch, like, I mean, it's pretty much what you said, Mike. Like, it's just not bloody enough for it. It just, like, doesn't have any teeth to it, where Scream is just, like, so well done and so, like, smart and meta, which I don't need, obviously. I love slasher movies, and I love dumb slasher movies, but this is, like, as PG as a slasher can go. Like, the only way this gets bumped up, because I do think this is, like, an R-rated movie, is, like, maybe there's, like, 2 fucks in it and a little bit of blood, and that's about it.
You could cut, like, 60 seconds out of the movie and it could be PG-13.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe if I went and looked, it is PG-14 or something, but to me, like, I'd probably almost respect it more if there was, like, 0 blood, and I'm like, okay, they're trying to really go for, like, a younger audience here, and I would think that's cool. I mean, that might be sadistic, but, give the kids a slasher movie to watch. But yeah, I just think, nostalgia-wise, it's always worth a watch every once in a while, just to see Jennifer Love Hewitt and Ryan Phillippe and all these guys, but it's not one that I would put in if I'm like, let's watch a 90s slasher movie. Like, I'm putting in Scream, I'm putting in The Faculty, like
Urban Legend,
like there's Valentine, like there's stuff I'd be putting in long before I put this in. So yeah, I'll say an okay, because I mean, like I said, I appreciate it, and I do know, like, it has its special place in horror history. How about you, Jill?
Yeah, so for me, kind of the same thing you said. Like, I remember it having such a chokehold on us, especially our generation in the 90s. It's basically a time capsule for the 90s. and the type of horror that was coming out then. I love the cast. I love Sarah Michelle Gellar. Anything she does to me is gold. I like the setting, like I talked about. I like the folklore of the Hook story. I like the foreboding threats, the soundtrack, but again, I keep coming back to comparing this to Scream as well, and Scream just does it better. And so for me, it's also going to be an okay.
Okay, so 3 okays. I'm sure there's a ton of people that just want to cancel us right now. I'm sure they hate us all. Like I said, I feel like this is such a beloved horror movie that I'm glad that other people don't connect with it, not just me. So we told you what we thought about it, and we asked, what did you think about the film? And we got answers on this one. This isn't one everyone ignored us on. So let's get into them. They all
Don't call them out.
They all came in through Instagram. So friend of the podcast, Cecily, wrote in and said, so much camp. This is the kind of movie that's fun to watch with friends after a few drinks.
Yeah, she's
Agree.
right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I'd probably need a more than a few drinks to really enjoy it.
I would love to watch this with Cess.
Yeah. And House of Wax.
Yeah. Oh yes, yeah. Double feature.
Yeah.
Shay Rudolph wrote and said, Helen should have been our final girl.
Period.
Also agree.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Devastating.
Geller fan club over here, so you're preaching to the choir.
She's just so good. Like, you become so attached to her, right?
That's right.
She's just amazing.
Stony Horror XO wrote and said, fun cult classic, even though we liked Helen more than Julie's boring ass.
Oh, everybody's calling it out. They're calling it out.
Everyone knows this should have been a Helen vehicle. And then
they should have brought her back. They should have done some necromancy in part 2 and brought her back. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Macabre Christopher Reviews, and he wrote, I loved it. Classic 90s horror at its best. Plus the villain kills a vampire slayer.
Yes.
I don't know, Christopher, because no one else wanted the Vampire Slayer to die. But like I said, I mean, that was more what I was expecting than our ratings on it. Just because, like I said, I know that most people really like this, and you always see them talk about it fondly.
I mean, we just did Scream, was it Scream 3?
No, we reviewed Scream 5, like the newer one.
Did we? Didn't we also do?
We did Scream 6.
Fuck. Okay. Well, I just rewatched all of them, so it's like very fondly stuck in my head as of recently. So it's really hard for me to watch something like this after watching Scream and loving the shit out of it.
We did review. I think for our 2nd year anniversary, me, Exilly, and Mike reviewed the original Scream.
Yeah,
gotcha.
That was fun.
So I know that we have done it on the podcast.
Uh-huh.
So with that, we do have a voicemail over at the Horrific Hotline. So as always, Nicholas came through to let us know his thoughts on the film. So let's find out what he thinks.
So I'm back with my thoughts on I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I have to say it's a decent 90s slasher movie. In that era, probably one of the better ones, actually. But sadly for me, it's always in the shadow of Scream. It's neither as clever nor as thrilling or as scary or as bloody as Scream. And it always drags a bit behind. I do like some of the chase sequences, and you get a nice horror cast with Sarah Michelle Gellar, for example, as one of the victims. And overall, I think some of the kills are nice to see, but there is not too much to it, and I think the story gets needlessly complicated with too many twists and turns towards the end, just to keep the viewer on their toes and have a few more red herrings. And I think in this case, the movie could have done with a little bit less of that and maybe a bit more of a, I'm sorry to say, interesting final act because once the mystery started to kind of get solved, the movie fell apart for me. And overall, it's still a weak yay for me because I can enjoy watching the movie, but if I really want to go into like a schlocky 90s slasher, I have to admit I'd prefer the second one because that is a terrible movie, but it is way more fun to watch because of the campiness. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on
Brandy.
I know what you did last summer. I know many people love this movie, just not really my favorite 90s slasher.
Nicholas, you still came in with a yay. We weren't even that kind to it, so I don't think you have anything to apologize for. I agree though. It's been a long time since I've seen the second one, but I do know we get that dreadlocked Jack Black performance.
And Brandy, the fucking queen.
Yeah, and Brandy. Thanks as always for calling in. Yeah, and if you want to leave us a message on the horrific hotline, I didn't check. I didn't even bring up the phone number. We keep saying don't call the phone number. We don't even know if it's still on. No one uses that way anyway. I feel like who wants to call a phone number? It's what, 2023? No one's into that kind of thing. So you can either, write us your thoughts or just send us a voice note from your phone. Anyway, email it, send it to the Instagram. However you want to do it, get it to us. We will make sure to play it on the episode at itslayspodcast@gmail.com is where you can send it. And it doesn't have to be about the movie that we're reviewing. It can be about anything. Ask us a question, make a statement. Maybe you want to side with Colton and say Queen of the Damned is a bad movie. So he needs friends in his corner. For this argument.
No, he doesn't, but anyway.
Or you can just call and tell Jill it's an amazing movie, and then
appreciate that.
She'll appreciate you. And from there, if you're not following us on social media, make sure to do so at It Slays Podcast everywhere. We're on Twitter, or X, I guess it is now, Facebook.
We're not calling it that.
Tumblr, Instagram, Slasher. We're on Threads. Pretty much if there's a social media, we're probably on it. And Jill, why don't you tell them about the Patreon?
If you want to become a horror hound and support us on Patreon, you can go on over there and become a horror hound and get some exclusive perks like early access to episodes 48 hours early.
When I'm not procrastinating.
When Rowan does his job. You can also check out our exclusive show, Stream Screams, that me and Rowan do about shitty Tubi movies. And also, you can pick a movie that we will review. And as always, shout out and thank you to our lovely patrons, Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Sacrotype, Joy, and Carvey. And Rowan, you want to plug that spooky playlist?
Yeah, so if you're into spooky music and it is getting close to that time, you can go to Spotify to the It Slays Podcast Horrific playlist. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media that was mentioned before and click on the Linktree link in our bio, and it will take you directly there. And we upload music from horror movies we review, or iconic horror movies, or horror movies we love. Licensed music, score. I'm sure Mike is going to text me and say, put these songs on this
listen,
list.
I'm on it.
Yeah, from I Know What You Did Last Summer. And we update it pretty regularly. So yeah, go there, check it out, and get your spooky music on. And all that is left is to announce our next episode. And it is a Mike pick. And I'm sure Colton will be listening to this episode, just waiting in anticipation for what it is. So Mike, what have you chosen for us?
Okay, our next episode is going to be on the 1999 David Cronenberg film Existence.
I have only, nice. I'm not gonna say anything, but yeah, great. I'll never complain about David Cronenberg, so
No, you shouldn't. He's always an interesting time.
So make sure to get that into your eyeballs, and we will be back in 2 weeks. As always, thank you for all the support. I am Rowan.
Bye, it's Mike.
Bye, it's Jill.
See you later.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
But the prime time gets.
Long live the new Fletch.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
We've got to return some videotapes.